Breaking news on a Thursday night. Good to see everybody on a McFiles Thursday. We're grateful to have everybody, and Chris McDonald with you. We've got a couple of wonderful guests coming into the house tonight. The first being Miss Magdalene Rose. She's on the phone with me, and good to see you, kid. Man, oh man, oh man, you leave me alone for a little while. Hadn't seen you in a while, and tonight we got Prince Andrew in jail. He's arrested over the Epstein files and other breaking news. How are you tonight? Well, I'll welcome you first, and then I'll get your opinion on all this stuff. How you doing, kid?
I'm good, thank you.
Very good, very good. Tell me what your thoughts are on Epstein. Where's all this headed? Where do you think it's going? Do you think there's more names coming? And what's your thoughts on all this tonight?
Well, I think the royal family is really not in a position of caring what happens to Prince Andrew anymore. I mean, they went from defending him and everything to being in such an apathetic place that in the time where he's being arrested, King Charles is at a fashion show and Queen Camilla's meeting with like American royalty. So I think there's more names coming, but I wouldn't be surprised if after all of this, all the sins of Epstein get blamed on Prince Andrew.
Do you think that there is any chance that this goes higher than Prince Andrew in the English government? And not just him, but what about over here? Magna, there's been some, and again, I know some of this stuff can't be confirmed, but there has been a lot of just ugly things that have been being reported in these files. And even the ladies on The View, so many names are on that list. And do you think that there's going to be a fallout for people that are going to be just on the list? Maybe they didn't do anything. But what's your thoughts on all that? Because this is getting to be a bomb that's going on. We got the titles tonight. The Epstein bomb goes off, but it's going off not just on Prince Andrew, but it's going off on a lot of people. And if I was Bill Clinton tonight, I'd be a little nervous, because if you can arrest a prince, you can arrest a president, a former president, can you not?
You can. I don't think it goes any higher in the royal family. I mean, if you really look at the royal family members, I don't think Queen Elizabeth was involved in this, or her husband. Prince William's been with the same girl since he was like 18, and he hates Prince Andrew. He always has. He didn't even invite Prince Andrew's wife to his own wedding. And Charles has been in love with Camilla, who's a woman who's a couple years older than him, since he was like 21, and been in the public eye with massive scrutiny. I mean, Charles's biggest sin is marrying a woman he didn't love instead of just marrying the woman he wanted to be with. So I don't think it goes higher in the British monarchy. But in the British government, people like Tony Blair and others, I read an interesting thing. Then Prince Charles had advised the UK government not to make Prince Andrew trade envoy, because he said Prince Andrew would use the role to hunt women, meet with wealthy people, and golf. And he had written to Prime Minister Blair begging him not to do this, saying, do anybody else. And Prime Minister Blair dismissed him. Cut to now, we know that's pretty much what he did, and even worse things. So I think this is a good day for King Charles.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Do you, where do you stand on the idea that the British government hid this? And, the statement by Prince Charles tonight, King Charles, I thought it was, I don't know what's the word. I just, there's a nervousness. There's a nervousness on Downing Avenue. I know it don't maybe no go further than Andrew, but I think that they, by extension, I think they're concerned that this stink is going to get on them. But do you think that there's going to be revelations coming that there was a cover-up? You know, the cover-up's always worse than the crime, kid. And what is your general? Let me sort of rephrase all this line of questioning, because I know a lot of this is just conjecture. Where does your age group stand on all this Epstein stuff? Are y'all like? Do you find young conservatives concerned about this, or do you think this is a distraction to bigger issues, or what's the younger generation think about all this?
I think it's a mix. I think that there is definitely a utilization of Epstein when there are other stories in the news no one wants to talk about. I think that happens. I think the other problem here is that Epstein seems to have actually been running the world. And that's a problem. And when you read Epstein's Wikipedia page, I mean, just the base knowledge anyone has access to. He went from being like a mathematics professor at Dalton in the 70s, hired with no qualifications, to like the guy that was advising presidents and was working with the Rockefeller Institute and had hundreds of millions of dollars and was a hedge fund manager. I just don't see how you go from the qualifications he had to the life he had. Obviously, people with talent, they can rise above. Maybe they cut corners because they're so talented. Nobody is this talented. So I don't know what he was offering, what he was exporting. Maybe it was like some weird occult thing, but something was going on. And, when you read the Epstein stuff as well, I see why people try to say that Trump was part of it. I don't think that. But I think that Trump knows more about the infrastructure than he lets on, and he doesn't want that to become what his presidency is about, which is why he's kind of protecting Bill Clinton from being hauled in.
You think he's protecting Clinton?
I do, because the Justice Department's made it very clear that 6 months ago they would have pulled Bill Clinton in, not Hillary, and they would have questioned him. And Trump said no. Trump said it's not good for the nation. Trump said all these things. And I think that's probably because he doesn't want the Epstein issue to become the biggest thing in his administration. But he also ran on, like, stopping the global elites and the evil cabal. So you have to balance that. And the other side of this is when Steve Bannon was booted out of the White House in 2017 by Reince Priebus and all sane people, his first stop was to move in with Epstein in New York and become his documentarian and film 15 hours of footage for him so Epstein could prep for his 60 Minutes interview that didn't happen because he was arrested instead. But, like, I need to understand why those people are all in the MAGA orbit and the kingmakers there.
All right, look, I totally am with you on that. And where did you get the source of that story that Trump did that? I'm curious.
It's all on Wikipedia. Like, this is what I don't understand. I did a little bit of research on Epstein stuff today just because it was so in the news. It's all on Wikipedia. It's all on Politico. So, like, when the MAGA people tell you we don't know anything, I think that's very misleading, and I think it's not even due diligence. This is available to anybody with a Wi-Fi connection.
Do you trust Politico and Wikipedia though?
I mean, I do, because this is information that was obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests. And it has a complete paper trail. Some of it was exposed by Project Veritas before the leader exited. I mean, it comes from conservative sources.
Okay.
I just need to understand how Steve Bannon went from being the self-proclaimed and credited architect of Trump's win to living with Epstein in New York.
No, that's a fair question, and that is a legitimate question. And yeah. Bannon has turned into being one of the biggest anti-Semites on the platform, and he's going to destroy TPUSA if they keep embracing him, Magdalene. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm concerned about J.D. Vance right now.
Yes.
He's got to disconnect himself from that wing of the GOP party. I read an article today. It was a great article. And I want to say it was from Breitbart, but they were talking about the fact that this anti-Semitic, I can't talk tonight, this anti-Semitic wing of the GOP party is small, but it is big enough to take the whole operation down. If Trump and Vance and the MAGA community at large does not separate themselves from that and repudiate that, because unfortunately the small part of that group is the loudest voices. They've got the largest media presence. I mean, they've got a multi-million people listening to them. And that's a lot of people, but we can't seem to have any distance between J.D. Vance and that group. And I hate to tell J.D., if he thinks 2028 is his, he's got another thing coming, because I'm not voting for him if he does that crap. My vote's on Rubio and DeSantis myself, but I'm just telling you, J.D. Vance is going to have to separate himself from this quick.
And I don't really understand why J.D. Vance has to be president. Like,
I'll agree with that.
I was not a big fan of his when he was running for Senate, and I thought he'd win. Like, as a Republican, I'm not a fair weather Republican. I vote for the Republican on the ticket. If I was in Ohio, I would have voted for him. But I didn't really get why I was being told, like, especially in 2022, he was the brilliant future of conservatism, and I'd listen to his speeches, and I'd be like, he's okay, but he's not like, brilliant. I don't really understand the coronation. And then to know, so the way that J.D. Vance became vice president is that Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk told President Trump that he had to be vice president. And what they were going to do was Vance was then going to run in 2028 and Kirk was going to be VP. And then Kirk was going to do 8 years, as VP and run, and Don Jr. was going to be VP and so on. Like, this was well reported. Charlie Kirk talked about this. So we're dealing with a vice president that was selected by Charlie Kirk and Don Jr. so they could ultimately be president, and he was a vehicle for that. Obviously, Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. So when you say, like, you don't really get what Vance is doing, I firmly believe that is because Vance was being run by Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk wanted to be president, and he needed a VP spot to do that. He would have been the right age. It would have been legal. I think there's something very creepy about Vance, and I think it's a little too engineered.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you because I've got reservations about him. And the only thing I'll say about the Trump-Clinton thing is that if that is true, and I'm not a big fan of Wikipedia, we may have a little difference of opinion on that. I'm not a big fan of Wikipedia, not a big fan of Politico, but I know that, again, I trust you, and I know that you're not one to just throw stuff out there, and I know that you've looked into this. But I will say this, if Trump is believing that, I think he's wrong. I disagree with that. If that is proven to be true, that he's holding the dogs back on the Clintons would put him in jail in 3 seconds. The Clintons would have him killed. I mean, he would be Hillaried if they could do it. And I just hope that he's not doing this for the sake of the country. I think it's just the opposite, Magdalene. I think the country will never heal until there's some justice and we see some people behind bars for life, and maybe even more, for the stuff they've done to the kids and the stuff they've done to this country, subverting justice, subverting the Constitution, basically trying to kill Trump. They killed Charlie Kirk. They tried to kill Trump 3 times. They've done everything they can to put conservatives in jail. They have hurt this country. They've hurt Christians. And I think that we just don't heal if we just give them a pass and say, okay, well, go and sin no more. That's crap. No, there needs to be a retribution. And I hate to tell President Trump that it's not good for the country that they walk. I disagree. I think it's just the opposite. I know I'm an old fogey, but what's your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I don't understand the protecting of the Clintons. They would destroy Donald Trump if they could. They did.
Absolutely.
We had the James Comey issue because of them. What about the dossier, the 4 years of American hell? I mean, like the special counsel. All of this is because of the Clintons. So this is the problem now. People want to know why Donald Trump is protecting the Clintons, because it's weird. And doing research on Jeffrey Epstein, he said there were 3 worlds he could never break into. He could never break into the Texas, like George Bush kind of entity. He could never break into that, no matter how much he tried. He could never break into the Italian world, that kind of high society. And he could also never break into the more upper echelons of Hollywood. So if you look at that, what does that tell you? Like in the Epstein files, there's no mention of any of the Bushes. So we've been told that the Bush family is so evil, that they're the orchestrators of all these things, and yet they're not in it. They're just not mentioned in it. Obama isn't in it. So to me, I think that the Bushes also have been scapegoated by MAGA people who I'm beginning to question the origins of. And I think that the bad actors have been a little bit mislabeled.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. And I actually, the other night, I talked about George Bush Jr. on President's Day on Monday night, and I think that, look, I'm no fan of George Bush Jr. I think he made terrible mistakes in Iraq. I think he made terrible mistakes in Afghanistan. Look, he took his eye off this economy, and we had this collapse in 2008 under his watch, and I think it ultimately led us to Obama. When you get down to it, the financial collapse of that summer, and not that McCain was going to get elected. McCain was an absolute, I almost think he was a plant, him and Romney both, with the GOP to sabotage the conservative movement. But I don't think George Bush Jr. was the devil, and I keep reminding folks, we had Al Gore in office the night of 9/11, where would we be? Where would we be 24 years later, my friend? Who knows where we would be right now? I don't think we'd have ever went to Afghanistan. I don't think, and maybe we wouldn't have made the mistake we did in Iraq. But I'm going to tell you something. The world would have been a much dangerous place. And Macklin, I'm not so sure where our country would be right now.
No, and someone can just be a terrible president. Like, they don't also have to be part of an evil cabal. He could have just been a terrible president with terrible judgment.
Totally true.
Who was overseeing massive issues. I also think the second Bush, I think he genuinely believed, like, you bring American principles places and people will adopt them, which we know is a debunked way of thinking. But he might have believed that. It might have just been his personal belief. Like, presidents are not saints. They make mistakes. They're not superheroes.
So well true, said kid. That's well true. I'm glad you said that. Keep going. Keep going. You're right.
But when I see that there's no mention of any of the Bushes or Reagan whatsoever, any of that, because Jeffrey Epstein began operating in earnest in 1980. So he never got into the Reagan world. He never got into Carter or the first Bush, the second Bush, or when Jeb Bush was governor of Florida, or when the second Bush was governor of Texas. And I don't understand why I am constantly told the Bush family is so evil, the Bushes did all this stuff. And yet in the files of someone who's an orchestrator of global evil, he says he couldn't get into that family. That family was too tight. They were too goody two-shoes. That's the language that he uses. And he talks about Obama, and he says Obama didn't want to talk to him. Obama thought he was slimy.
Well, Trump did too. Trump did too.
Trump did too. So when you're talking about, like, the evil of all these people, I sometimes think that we're told the Bushes were so bad because they don't want any kind of, like, Bush sensibilities, because the Bushes are very disciplined people back in the Republican Party. Like George W. Bush and the first Bush, they ran those administrations very tightly. There wasn't sleaze. I think they keep the Bushes out because they want it to be a little bit sleazy. Not Trump, but those people below him.
No, I think it's an excellent analysis. That's why we paid the big bucks, kid. Come on here and share your opinion. And this is why we give you the Rose Report some weeks, and it's good stuff. Hey, I got to ask you about the Guthrie situation. What's your take on all this? Is it do you think this lady's alive, or do you think that we're never going to see Miss Guthrie again? And what is your thoughts about the local cops and how they handled this and bumbled this case?
I don't know if we'll ever see her again. I think it's weird. I think it might be gang related, all of those issues, but also, we've used the full force of the FBI, local enforcement. Trump's given them everything they need in terms of resources. And it's also Arizona, so you weren't dealing with snowstorms, you weren't dealing with any of that, and they couldn't find anything. Like, they couldn't piece anything together. To me, that's either a super professional effort to take her out, or like some person with no real experience who just got lucky. And a lot of people think it's a gang hit and that the person just thought she was a rich old lady, didn't even know who she was. And if that's the case, like, imagine you've done this horrible crime, you turn on the news and you realize that's Savannah Guthrie's mother. I mean, that's a terrifying moment.
Do you think there's any truth to the fact that the family was arguing? And because we had Eric Caron on last week, and he couldn't be with us tonight. He'll be back on with us next week. But he's concerned that this goes a little bit deeper than a gang hit, that this was some kind of internal thing. And look, just to be frank with you, I don't know if you picked up the vibe that I did, but the conference, the news conference, the last one that Savannah Guthrie had, where she was mimicking the girl from the Hannibal Lecter movies back in the early 2000s, and literally quoting the lady's words verbatim. And then and again, this part I can't prove, that the other sister is into satanic Satanism, which we don't know that to be fact. But if it is, this adds a whole nother element to this. And do you think there's any possibility? And I'm not making light of it, but look, it's just all these it's a shame that when you are in your Hollywood, you're in the media, you're in these high-profile jobs, and something like this happens, it's just like, everything is just weird, and I don't know how to say it any other way. I know it's not funny, but the way that these people act during these times, Magdalene, and maybe I would be crazy too if it was my mom, I don't know. But this is why I hate to see these things played out in public, because everybody, and I tend to be guilty of this myself, we nitpick what people say and do, but it is a little weird how the family's been acting. And I'll just ask you a question up front. Do you think there's a possibility that this goes to them ultimately, and there's something internal we don't know about?
Well, I've been watching the commentary from. Are you familiar with Black Twitter?
I've heard of it.
Okay, I love Black Twitter. Black Twitter is one of my favorite places to go. Anytime something crazy with a white family happens, the Black Twitter commentators see through all of it. And Black Twitter was real clear. I saw a conspiracy theory on Black Twitter. I don't know if it's true, but it made sense to me. Savannah Guthrie had some type of like throat surgery or something like that where she was out for, I think, 6 or 8 weeks. And during that time, the ratings for the Today Show went up. And she was very upset about this. She was very paranoid about it. She was constantly checking the Nielsen ratings. And people were like, it's not that she abuses people, it's just that she runs such a tight ship and people are kind of miserable. And with her gone, it felt more relaxed. So apparently, Savannah Guthrie makes $8 million a year from the Today Show. And they're looking for budget cuts and things, and she was worried about her job. So Black Twitter believes she had her mother kidnapped, and her mother's alive somewhere. But she had her mother kidnapped so she could either stay on the Today Show, because now they can't fire her, or she could quit to continue looking for her mother and all this. And then when she's quit, she'll miraculously find her and all of these things. I don't know if it's true, but I think that Black Twitter theory, it tracks.
Well, again, that is a theory, and we want to make it clear to our audience. This is not the position of the McFiles. It's not the position of Magros. This is the position of the Black Twitter account, and it's just a theory. Okay, we want to make it clear about that tonight. Yes. But I will tell you this: that narrative, based upon what I've seen, and this is my opinion, based upon what I've seen and all the unanswered questions. And I read a report tonight that the FBI's got pictures all of a sudden. This is we're 20 days out from this. You cannot tell me that it's taken the FBI 20 days to get a picture of these people with the technology we've got. They're just now getting us a photo and putting things together 20 days later. Look, your theory and the Black Twitter theory, it makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying it's what happened, and I pray that they would not have stooped that low. But, Magdalene, you're dealing with people in the media. And look, let us not forget, and I think people do. I remember the debate of 24, and she was as hateful and ugly to Trump as any reporter had been, really. And I don't know if it was 24 or 2020. I think it was 24, when she was just absolutely hateful. And, she's no fan of Trump. And he's been very gracious to her. I mean, he's been out there saying all the right things, not holding the grudge about it. But you got a raging liberal. I mean, she's a liberal, and she don't like the things Trump does, and she don't like the things conservatives does. That's what the media does. They hate him. And again, that's not to say that I don't feel bad about her mother being missing tonight, but we can't forget those things because these media types do some nutty stuff. Look at Don Lemon, correct?
Oh, yeah, Don Lemon went crazy. I mean, Don Lemon entered a level of lunacy rarely seen. I saw a video of Don Lemon where he is chasing down the children from Sunday school, and he's saying they feel terrorized, but so do the Somali. That's what he says. They must feel terrorized, but so do the Somali people being persecuted by ICE. I mean, he lost his mind. I hope he goes to prison for what he did.
I do too.
He went into a church. He harassed people. There's one video where a male parishioner, probably in his 60s or maybe 70s, is calmly talking with him, and then Don Lemon begins parroting leftist talking points, and the guy says, I'm done with this, I don't want to do this anymore. And Don Lemon follows him quite aggressively and says he just doesn't want to hear facts, he doesn't want to know the facts. I mean, to me, that's not journalism. Maybe continuing saying, can I get a comment? But that's not journalism, that is harassment. So I hope he's prosecuted. I'd love for Pam Bondi to do anything, like literally anything. So that would be nice if she handled that.
Couple of more things, and I'm going to let you go. I've got several stories that we're posting tonight. By the way, folks, if you are on our Telegram pages, please check it out, the McFiles News and Faith Network and the Patriot Breaking News site. But there's 3 separate stories. I just want to read you the headlines of, and I want you to chime into these things tonight because this goes to your generation. Senator Ed Markey tonight of Massachusetts has pushing a bill, a trans bill of rights, and he wants minors to have access to gender-affirming care. They're literally wanting these gender-mutilating surgeries to go on and be pushed on these kids. And then you've got Ilhan Omar tonight, and it's not related to that, but in a way it is because she's wanting not just ICE abolished, but she told a town hall tonight that the Dems plan, if they take power, they're looking to basically remove the Department of Homeland Security from this country. They're going to dismantle it all. And Tim Burchett tonight, my representative here in Tennessee, he said there is a pathetic agenda that's going on in Congress that these Democrats are protecting the rapists, the murderers, and the child molesters. And look, Burchett's right. I know Tim. I mean, I've met him the week before all this COVID stuff hit the country. I went to see him in Washington. He was new at the time, but he's right. He's right. They're protecting these. How does this play with your generation that the Dems are trying to protect this agenda of mutilating kids? And what do you think about all this?
I mean, I don't think my generation really cares about the transgender thing anymore. Like, I think it's sort of played out. I think it's not cool anymore. You don't get a lot of traction for it. It's not really happening anymore. Social justice causes come and go. They're like handbags. They stay around for a little while. Everyone wants one. They buy it, and then it sits on your shelf. The problem is that these people mutilated themselves and sterilized themselves, and probably eventually will lead to their own demise because they'll have so many infections and they'll be so prone to that because they destroyed their immune system. And that's very sad. But I just don't think my generation cares about this anymore. I think the thing people care about now is the AI takeover, which is why we're like Republicans who are pretending all AI is good. Like J.D. Vance's position is to just embrace AI and run with it. That is the thing my generation cares about. They're trying to build these AI data centers in Pennsylvania. They're trying to buy land from non-Amish farmers to begin with. And then they want to move on to Amish farmers. Like, everyone's really upset about that. So if you're a Republican right now, I mean, take the hint, because that's what people care about in my age group.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting stuff. I know this is overseas stuff. Do you think that we're headed to bomb Iran here soon? Do you think that Trump is trying to get them to the table? Do you think they're going to come to the table and settle this? Or do you think we're headed for another brush up in the Middle East soon? I'll let you go after this.
I mean, I think Trump, if he's going to go after any country, it's going to be Iran. I disagree with the libertarian viewpoint on this, that he's just doing this to nation build and because Lindsey Graham is encouraging it. Donald Trump hates Iran. Trump has said multiple times, and he said it before he goes overseas, that if anything happens to him, that you should assume it was Iran, and that he's left specific instructions with Vance, Speaker Johnson, various people on the Democrat side who said they will honor them, like Elizabeth Warren, about what should be done to Iran if he's assassinated, and that the Joint Chiefs know. I think that Donald Trump looks at Iran as too dangerous to be allowed to exist. And he said tonight they have 15 days to come up with a real plan of peace and comprehension and everything. To me, I think that Iran, if it goes down, it's not because Donald Trump is nation building. It's because he can't leave this for the next administration. He doesn't want to do that. If Donald Trump says to us that we need to go into Iran, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that because he's the president, and that's what I elected him for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. So I think that we'll see how it plays out. Kid, always a pleasure. Thank you for your insight tonight, and you get some rest. Thank you for coming on a little late with me tonight, and we will talk to you soon, and we'll get you back on in a week or so, and we'll I'd like to do a panel one night on all these things with you, Eric, and Leslie, maybe again like we did, and James Akers. That would be a cool thing, but I'll holler at you about that down the road, and we'll talk about setting that up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Listen, have a good night, hon. God bless. Take care. Magdalene Rose, everybody, put some fire in that house, and we're grateful for her, and we're going to get somebody else on the line with us tonight. We're going to have all sorts of guests, and then we're going to take your questions. We got some video. Tomorrow night we'll be here, same time around 8.
Hey, man.
Hey, Leslie, how are you? We're great. You're on live tonight. It's good to see you. What you up to tonight?
Good to see you too.
Now, see, we don't let every guest come on twice a week. You have to get into a special club. Like the McFiles Hall of Fame.
I feel privileged.
We just don't allow anybody to come on twice. I'm just telling you. Even the host, I gotta get permission for me to come on my own show twice. So it's good to see Leslie Milley on the phone tonight. I wanted to get your take because we just got off the phone with Magdalene. She had some pretty interesting takes on this, and I wanted to get yours. And folks, let me just say this, that the opinions expressed on this network are our opinions and the opinions the guest opinions. You don't have to agree with everything you hear, but that's why we banter, we talk, and, we're going to give you a chance to give us your opinion. But I do want to talk to you about the Epstein situation tonight. It seems like this bomb has gone off. Prince Andrew has been arrested. Magdalene's age group don't seem to think they don't really care too much about what's going on, but I think as older folks do. But this sort of touches a lot of people, Leslie, and you were telling me our dear friend, I don't want to get into the details of it, but even our dear friend, our mutual friend, her name got put on that list because they did it maliciously. And I think that while I'm hoping that justice is going to be served for these victims, I think that there's a lot of things on that list that I think people better be careful about making assumptions of what's being said, because as we found out this week, not everything that's on that list is about people have done wrong. Am I accurately saying that?
Yes, because what they did was just basically every email was dumped, and every person that came through those emails, Juanita's was because the best I could tell from the information that I got was she was on, they were talking about how much trouble she was, and they didn't believe her as her book was being released. So she was getting under their skin. This was in 2018. And she was sharing that was a really tough time. They really went after her, tried to discredit her in any way they could. So we have to think of people like that get on there. There are probably tens of thousands of people's names who have been mentioned that had nothing to do with the big picture. I think the real hard part is going to be to dissect who was on there for nefarious reasons and who was on there because they were simply in the news or part of history at that time, the best I can tell. I mean, that was kind of Juanita in a nutshell. So I think it'll be interesting. There are 3.5 million pages. To go through all of those with a fine-tooth comb, I think that is going to be the challenge. And then probably 10% is going to be misinterpreted, or, people will try to spin it. So it should be an interesting year.
Have you been sort of, I have actually been shocked at the right and their response to all of this. Nancy Mace has come out tonight, said she's, don't have any faith in the Justice Department anymore. I mean, there's all this talk that Pam Bondi is stalling and all this. She's released 3 million pages. I don't know what more they can do, Leslie.
I don't either.
I really don't know what they're expecting Pam Bondi to do. I really don't. Look, I know that Magdalene said something, and I want to run this by you because we don't have any solid proof that this went on. There was just sources within some of the written media that claims that Trump had made the comment to her 6 weeks ago not to go after Bill Clinton, that it would hurt the country. I personally don't believe that Trump would do that. Now, I may be wrong, but do you think that there's more that is out there? And it seems that the Clintons are the main cog. The Clintons, Gates, and who's the other main character? I saw something tonight.
Well, Steve Bannon. In there.
Bannon's in there a lot. The Clintons are in there a lot. Bill Gates is in there a lot. And, it's amazing to me that as much as they're in there, that nothing has been done. But do you think there's forces above this that are holding back the weight of justice? And again, if that's the case, then my opinion of Pam Bondi is going to change a lot. But I don't believe that yet. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the assumption now we can mostly make, if you agree with me, I'd be interested to know, is that there really was no specific list or black book. It was simply a chain of people, and they pretty much lived their life it looks like things were a lot of times on the spur of the moment, that it was, let's have fun and do this kind of thing. I think Epstein obviously went through different times of his life where he had good buddies. Seems like Prince Andrew was one that was always constant. Bill Clinton pretty much for many years. Bill Gates for many years. I mean, if you're comfortable enough to talk to him about trying to slip something into your wife's food so you can help her through her sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
I consider that, talk about being in the circle.
Crazy
but
stuff.
One thing, that blew me away tonight was, well, one, I saw Nancy Mace on TV talking about the Epstein, he did not commit suicide. She is adamant about that it was a hit. And I've really, I vacillate on that because the Trump administration has been so indignantly, Marco Rubio, Pam Bondi, everybody, he committed suicide. And I'm not a huge fan of Nancy Mace, but she was kind of convincing talking about this. So that being said, was Prince Andrew on purpose the first shoe to fall? A huge person, going down? Was it something to scare the Clintons? I don't know. But also today it came out that Ghislaine Maxwell was actually the person that put together the Clinton Foundation.
Now
that
is a breaking news story tonight. That's something that needs to be broke. That Ghislaine Maxwell was behind the Clinton Foundation, and let me ask you a question about all this, and this is an opinion question because I stated mine to Magdalene. I do not believe the country heals, Leslie, fully. I do not want revenge. This is not about revenge. This is not about payback. I do not believe the country heals until there is justice, though, in many of these areas of these people that did some of the most horrendous things to this country. And if it is true that Trump is protecting the Clintons, it's going to be the biggest mistake he's made in 8 years. He should not be protecting the Clintons because they would put him in jail. She is even out there this week. She was saying some of the most god-awful things about him about 2020 and just basically accusing him of, having mental problems and other things. Not that sticks and stones will break my bones and that kind of thing. But the Clintons would screw him over, and if they were in power, Donald Trump would be in prison tonight, or worse.
Of course.
And I'm sorry, but you don't protect people like this, and they have harmed the country. We had Russiagate because of Hillary Clinton, and it led to just an avalanche of things that ultimately cost Trump the presidency in 2020. Even though we're in better shape tonight, him being president now, than I think we would have been if he'd have won in 2020.
I do too.
And I think the Lord knew all this. But I will tell you this, I think it's a huge mistake, and I think that we need to let the reins of justice, and I'll just quote Prince Charles tonight. He said we need to let the law play out with his brother Andrew. And I think that that's exactly how we need to see it here. We need to see the law play out in this country as to those that are on that list, and if they did things, and we can prove that they did things, they need to be in jail. And that may be the other issue. Maybe we don't know the things that they've got in those files that, while bad, they may not rise to the level of criminal behavior because there's maybe a lot of innuendo and a lot of insinuation that they were doing things without actual proof. You got to have proof, correct?
Absolutely. And there are repeated, on dozens that I saw, which I only saw just a tiny bit, was that he being Jeffrey Epstein, was always quick to say, yes, let's talk about this or something if something came up. So they spoke live on phone. I think a lot of that's going to be hard to prove, because if that's the case, then how are you going to prove what they were talking about or what happened? I mean, there's no way. So he was smart in that regard. I think like the Maxwell thing, her coming out as the architect of that Clinton Foundation, I think that just proves more just on the surface that that is such a rigged and evil organization for evil. And we know that's probably the case, but do we have enough to prove it? I'm kind of surprised at Trump being conciliatory on this, because what that poor man has been through, and I'm with you, I think it would be the biggest mistake of his life if he doesn't prosecute. Because I want justice. I want blood. I want him to be held accountable for what he's done. And if that's prison for an 80-year-old man, so be it. I don't care.
I think the country heals if it happens. I think that there's resolution, and I think that for your friend Juanita Broderick, my friend Juanita Broderick, for all the things that have happened through the years, for you, for the unknown victims, and it's not just him, it's her. I think both of them. I think Hillary needs to sit in there at the jail with him. And, look, this is, I'm watching Roger Hooker's comment about Trump's concern about the devastation of the country. I think it's the devastation of the country is if people walk scot-free of this and there's no justice for it, Leslie, that's just as devastating as if putting an ex-president in jail.
Well, it is. It really is. And so, I would say in that regard, as a Christian, as, healing the country, let's go through the motions. Let's expose what these people have done. And then Trump can graciously offer asylum or a pardon or something like that. But the fact that he needs to be held accountable for what he did, and her as well, and many others, then let's go ahead and take the steps, because you're right. There is a two-tier justice system. It's them and us. And I think that's one of the frustrations we're having in this country right now.
Without a doubt.
The division. And you can't continue that. It's already at a breaking point, like we've seen in Minnesota. We can't continue to live like that as a country.
We're on a very slippery slope as it is. And I think you just nailed it about the two-tier justice system. That is what people believe. The people do not believe that the conservatives get an equal, fair shake in the courts as liberals do. Now, whether that is proven or not to be true, that's, I guess, another situation. But I would agree with that. I would agree with that fully. And we can just look back at what's happened over the last 8 years. And I just want to say this about the country and devastation, and Trump worried about it. I tell you what, the left didn't care about that when they were going after Trump. They were trying to put him in jail every day, Leslie. They were trying to impeach him. Crap, they tried to kill him 3 times. How is that going to be not devastating to the country? I'm sorry, you do not appease evil. You do not placate evil. I don't care how ugly it is. What that would be like us telling the world, well, Hitler killed 6 million Jews, so to protect Germany and not devastate Germany's country, let's just don't do anything to Hitler. Not that we would have caught him alive anyway, because he was such a punk coward. But if we would have caught Hitler, that same mentality would have carried over to that. That would be like telling us, let's give Hitler a pass. Is that an accurate analogy?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, and it empowers them. I was watching Hillary, as hard as it is. It empowers these people. Look at her smugness. Look at her determination to just, how dare you? I mean, she might as well say those words out loud, because that's what she's saying every time she looks in that camera and denies it. I don't even know them. I never even know if I met Jeffrey. I was not friends. Well, then why was she on the 3rd row of your daughter's wedding?
Exactly. Well, and let me just say this, and to Roger's point, and I'm not fully taking issue with you, Roger. I'm just saying but he says that to him, the country is more important to Trump than Clinton. I agree with that, but ultimately this is about Clinton, because it's about those that, if they did these things on that island and Epstein knew about it, and if it's proven that they were behind his killing, then you got, there's no way that the Department of Justice can turn a deaf ear to that. And I'll put it like this. If it's found out that they've covered this up, that's going to be worse than anything Trump can imagine. I think that he's playing with fire if that's what is happening. I'm not saying he's doing that. And I do not believe that in my heart of hearts that he is trying to stop this. Now, I hope I'm not proven wrong about that. But I'm praying, but I would say this to the administration tonight. It's best just to lay it out on the table, no matter how bad it is, and let the chips fall. You got a criminal offense. You got proof that this ex-president did this. Put him in jail. Put him in jail. Put her in jail. And do what you got to do. And that's just my take on it. And but Prince Andrew, I wonder if Prince Andrew's going to kill himself. I'm just wondering. If I was Prince Andrew, I'd be sleeping. I put it like this: if I was Prince Andrew, I would be drinking a lot of coffee at night, and I wouldn't be seen outside of my house, huh?
No, sleeping with one eye open, because I know. I mean, look how blatant and obvious the Epstein thing was. I mean, we talked about this 6 years ago when this happened. No one really thinks, I don't think at the time that it happened, that he committed suicide. I never thought that, because there were too many coincidences. The cameras being off, the guards not being there, just the type of sheets that were left, the long knotted sheets, the way he committed it on his knees. I don't know. There were just so many discrepancies and disparities. I still have a hard time buying that. And when I heard Marco Rubio say that too the other day, this man committed suicide. I don't see the proof. If they can show me the proof that they know that 100% to say that, please show me, and I may change my mind. But I feel like there's too many smoke and mirrors in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And for Trump to say that, that's very concerning.
Yeah.
I'm with
you. I don't think if you took a poll, I'll put it like this, buddy. If you were to take a poll in this country tonight and ask that question, do you think Epstein killed himself? I would say it's about 70-30 that he didn't. I guarantee you I would say 60 to 70% of this country would say, no, we don't believe that. And I think that's about how it seems to play out. And the only 30% that does is that right sort of elite group up there that's trying to protect the elites and trying to protect the establishment. And that's not a good thing either. I'm going to move on from that because I've got a few other things I want to run by you tonight. What is your thoughts on Iran? I mean, we've got another situation that Iran was put on notice today, 15 days. You think Trump waits 15 days, or is this going to be, I'm giving you 15 days, but I'm coming tomorrow?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I think, again, he's doing it for the people of Iran, that he thinks they are so devastated. They've killed probably hundreds of thousands of people. They say 50 or 60,000, but it's probably 3 times that. I think he's just so disheartened by that, and he knows that they're going to rise up unless he squashes things for good. With that being said, he's not a warmonger. Will he go in and do it and just be out of there? They're saying it would probably take less than 24 hours for everything to be said and done. But is that our war? And I heard them talking about the oil and the people. And I mean, yeah, there's some great arguments to back us doing that. But then I thought we weren't going to police the world anymore. Is it more for us, for the oil? I don't know. What do you think about it?
I believe that this is my take on it, and it may be a little different than most people's, because I think this is tied to the Gaza thing. I think Trump needs the Middle East with him to get this Gaza peace plan settled, and I think that he is getting pressure from the Saudis, and he's getting pressure from maybe the Jordanians a little bit, maybe even the Egyptians to some degree, because you got to remember the enemy of my enemy is my friend in the Middle East, but they're enemies over there too. There's no love lost between the Saudis and Iran because it's two different branches of Islam.
Yeah.
And I think that there is more going on than this, because see, with everything going on with our economy right now and everything going on here, even though there's some great things going on, the media is never going to report on it. The feel of the country is still that the economy is not doing that great. And I think that Trump needs to be concentrating on that. And it just seems like it's a distraction to me to want to go into Iran again. I'm not saying we don't need to. I'm not saying these people ain't dangerous. I get it. But, Leslie, this Middle East, we have been pounding sand over there for, this country's 250 years old this year. And ever since the 1900s, and you really going back to the time that Israel became a nation in 48, America has tried its best to fix the situation, and it's never been fixed. It's never going to be fixed. This hatred goes back 3,500 years, and I'm telling you, I think America needs to we need to support Israel. We need to back our ally, but we need to let Israel do the heavy lifting. And, don't
you think that's going to be part of it, though?
Possibly. But let me ask you this. While we're talking about this, did not we, and I know it was two different presidents, Israel could have done the heavy lifting in Gaza. If we'd have just left Israel alone, that Gaza conflict would have been over with in 6 months. Because they could have cleaned Gaza, they could have cleaned Hamas out without, and look, things happen in war, okay? People get killed. Innocents get killed. You've got an enemy that hides behind children and hides behind hospitals, hides behind churches, hides behind women, hides behind innocent civilians. And to root that out, unfortunately, things are going to happen where innocent people are killed. That's not Israel's fault. That's Hamas's fault. But the media, when Joe Biden got basically, when Trump took over, by that time, the war had been going on a year because Israel had been strapped. They had been handcuffed by America to do what was right. Every time you turned around, instead of America praising Israel to help them beat Hamas, they were basically telling the world that it was Israel's fault that this whole thing happened. And Trump changed the tone, but it was too late by then. And I just think that we have done this every single time. You go back to history, you look at the 6-Day War, you look at the Yom Kippur War, you look at the War of Independence, America tends to always want to come down on the side of the gas sellers. And I'm telling you, if we keep doing this stuff, it's going to backfire. And this is what scares me about this Board of Peace. Because I'm reading things about this Board of Peace that, look, Israel's not on board with this. Because a lot of these concessions that she's got to make is going to be made to an enemy that just tried to destroy her 18 months ago, buddy.
I know.
That's what I feel. And maybe this is what this Iran thing is about. Perhaps this is like, well, I'm going to throw a bone to the Middle East. I'm going to throw a bone to the Saudis or throw a bone to Jordan. And I'm not saying that what he's doing is wrong, because maybe ultimately it needs to be done. But it's just the timing on this stuff is always crazy. I mean, it's just mind-boggling why we do things when we do them. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's at the same time he's pushing the Board of Peace for Gaza.
Well, and I think what's really, I guess you're right, alarming when you tie the economy into it. I wonder if there's not, and I don't want to use the word desperation because that's too bleak, but he has to be looking at the economy and saying, hey, if we don't squash this Iran thing or whatever, imagine if the gas prices go back up, if things happen, it could destroy our economy, and things are going better, and it's going to seal our deal for the midterms and maybe 28. I don't know if that's behind any of his reasoning. I'd like to think it's not, but I don't understand the big picture as much as he does. I think he knows things, even to the side of the Clintons and all this. Does he know something we don't know that's going on in the Middle East that has to be addressed now? I mean, I don't know. And then throw in Marco Rubio into that equation. Throw in, what's the name, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, J.D. Vance. Throw all those guys in there. Don't you think if it was something that was a bad idea that they would say something and they would try to rein him in? I know he has the final word, but I have to believe that a group of that many intelligent men will do the right thing.
Well, may shock you what I'm about to say. I'm no fan of Witkoff. And I'm no fan of Jared Kushner. I think that they have put together a plan that is like, it's destined for destruction. And Leslie, to be frank with you, and I'm going to bring some faith into this. Look, I know from what we read in Scripture where Israel, all this is going. And ultimately, there's going to be a false peace that's coming to the Middle East at some point. And when I read their plans, look, even the Abraham Accords, I've talked to Bible teachers, I've talked to people that have read those Abraham Accords and know probably even deeper about it. And I know there are a lot of Jewish people that have praised those Abraham Accords, and I'm sure they would, because, you know, it does keep the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians in a place, a posture of peace toward Israel. But I firmly believe this, and again, I may be proven wrong, and I may be the most naive individual in the world thinking this. There is not going to be any peace coming to that region until Jesus Christ comes back physically, period. And any effort, whenever I see these initiatives, you go back to the Bush years, you go back to the Clinton years, you go back to Bush Sr., you go back to Nixon, you go back to Carter. Every time America has tried to lay a peace treaty on the table and force Israel to sign it, it has resulted in disaster. And I don't, and I know this may be that Trump, he's got the greatest intentions, and I'm not even knocking the effort that he's trying, because I do respect that. I respect he don't want to see bloodshed over there. But a piece of paper cannot take the hatred out of the hearts of Israel's enemies. That's my point. That's all I'm trying to say. And I just think Witkoff and Kushner are trying to do this for legacy's sake and to have a notch in the president's buckle, which is, you know, if that's the reason they're doing this, it's for the wrong reason. But it's going to leave Israel hanging high and dry, my friend. And it's not going to end well. It's just not going to end well for anybody. And we're going to ultimately have war over there. Because, again, he won't be here in 3 years. Trump won't be here to police this in 3 years. Somebody else is coming.
Right. Well, we know it'll all fall apart if the Democrats are elected, and maybe even in the midterms, if we don't get rid of this filibuster, there are going to be things that we're not going to be able to control.
I totally agree.
So I think another thing he's looking at is the time left that he knows he has the control to do things. I have to believe that's part of it too. Now, can you cram all of that into 8 months? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either. And we'll just have to wait and see about that. Couple of other quick stories, and I'll let you get out of here. Thank you for staying up with me tonight. I'm glad to see you.
Sure.
President Trump was in my favorite restaurant today, the Varsity, and down in Atlanta. Yeah, he was railing on this election fraud in Georgia. And do you see anything coming of these investigations? I know a lot of people I've talked to believe we don't need to be rehashing 2020, but in a way, I agree with that. But in a way, I believe it's the same thing about the justice thing. I think we do need to know what happened. I think we need to see what exactly happened and make sure it don't happen again. In that regard, I think that's why it's worth at least looking into. Are you on board with that, or do you think we should just move on?
I am. And I was talking to a Democratic friend about this, and she had that approach. Hey, that was 6 years ago. Let this die. Let the country get over that. And I said, no, you have to understand that's your thought, because you weren't negatively impacted, or you weren't the end or the bottom of what happened. We are sick of not having justice. We are sick of being denied justice. I mean, we are so sick of not being able to plead our case and having a corrupt court system do everything. We're done with it. And you don't understand how many times we've taken this hit in the last 10 years, or actually the last 30 or 40 years, and we're tired of doing it. We're really sick of it. And we're calling them out. We've been dealing with this corruption and crap for 50 years, and we're finally calling it out.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. We'll see how this plays out, buddy. We'll see how this plays out. I've got a lot of trepidation about this whole peace initiative. I don't like it. I've never liked it. I've witnessed too many of these things, how they've ended, and they've not ended well for our nation. They've not ended well for Israel. And, I don't know what it is about this country. I don't know what it is about America that we just can't be a solid friend to her. Israel, I do not believe, and I know there's a lot of hatred for Israel in this country right now, but Leslie, Israel has never betrayed the United States. And I'll go on record saying that tonight. They've always stood with us no matter what we've done in our actions, because they have tried their best to be a solid friend. I feel like that over the course of the last 50 years that you've just described, I can't say the same thing about our country to her.
No.
And if I'm in Israel's place, I would be a little feel betrayed myself at some of the things that we've allowed to happen to her, to the way we've backed her enemies at times instead of her.
Well, and let me tie this back to the Epstein thing. I am convinced that he was some kind of an agent. Was he a Mossad agent and he was an asset for the U.S.? I don't know, but I guarantee you there's something going on there, and that might be what Trump's trying to protect too. I don't know. Have you thought about that?
Well, I have thought about that, but I just don't. I'm not so sure that. Again, that's one of those things I guess only God knows, because, one thing about it, we don't have Jeffrey to ask anymore, do we?
That's the whole point, right?
All I got to say is he didn't kill himself. That's all I got to say. I think the people that, whatever that happened to him, I know they know it. I personally, I'm being facetious. Honestly, I think ultimately it don't matter what he was. I think that what he did to those girls on that island, and what he did with his trail of these underage girls, is horrendous. It's just absolutely horrendous. And this pedophilia and this spirit that has gripped this country, and it goes into the LGBTQ stuff, the trans stuff, the genital mutilation. You got an entire political party, buddy. You got a Democrat Party that's protecting the pedophiles. They're protecting rapists. They're protecting this agenda. Ed Markey is out there tonight saying that he is going to push a trans rights bill that basically is going to give schools and give states the permission to, if a child wants to have that done, that they don't need their parents anymore. They can say, hey, screw my parents. I'm going to come have this done. And I'm sorry. We're going to stand up against that. Yeah. We're not going to allow that. No, we're not. If the Christians are here and we got a voice.
And that's what happened too. I think that was a huge piece of 24 that we don't talk about much anymore, in the fact that we said enough. You're not going to cut our kids up anymore. You're not going to make pornography and pedophilia and all these things okay. You're not going to bring millions of illegal people over to suck the benefits away from all of the people that live here. And I think it was a combination. I think that was a huge thing for voter turnout for the Republicans. And let's face it, they're just not very excited to go vote in the midterms. I don't know how you change that. I don't know.
Well, I think that if the election was held tonight, I'd be very worried about us. I'd be very worried about us. Thank God we got about 9 months to get this corrected, and change course. 8 months now. And but if the election was to be held tonight, I'd be very concerned that we'd lose both the House and the Senate. I would, because of the sentiment in the country. And I think that your statement just now is wild, because there is no enthusiasm on the right. And I think this stuff with the Justice Department, Leslie, the Epstein stuff, all this delay in seeing anything, and then you get all these high profile cases and they mishandle and bundle them. It doesn't help. None of this helps.
No. Well, we feel like our agent of change, being Trump, has somehow let us down. And whether you think it intentionally or subconsciously, there's so much bad. Yes, we've gotten so many good things out of this, but I think there's been so much bad that people they're disillusioned. And I'm that way too. My husband said the other night, quit watching this stuff. I'm watching all of these shows and YouTube stuff. And he said, quit watching it. And he is overloaded with information. And I think a lot of people are like that. I'm not. I'm a news junkie, and I live it 24/7 because I like it. But I think the average human being or person that lives in this country, even the conservatives and the extreme, Christians, conservatives, the whole right in general, I think we're just tired. We're tired of things not going our way ever.
I think that's a very astute observation, friend. And there is frustration. There is great frustration. And I think that's why people react the way they do, and they get frustrated. And, Nancy Mace and the right, and they say things publicly like this. And look, I have lost all respect for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, all these former representatives. But, their true colors come out when they get out from underneath that mic. I mean, we've got a whole wing of the GOP party. I'll ask you this, and then we'll take some questions tonight from the audience. Look, I read an article yesterday, great article about there's a small wing of the GOP party that's turned anti-Semitic. And if we don't address that, and if J.D. Vance does not distance himself from that, if Trump don't distance himself from that quickly, that is going to play into 2026, the midterms, and 28 too. And the problem with that small group is they're the loudest. Okay, they're small, but they're the loudest, and it seems the appearance of that they control the party, and they don't. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for most conservatives. But the millions and millions of followers that they have makes it seem like they have more of a stronghold in the GOP than they don't. I mean, you got Tucker Carlson that has lost his natural-born freaking mind.
Oh, my God.
Candace Owens has lost her natural-born freaking mind. Matt Gaetz has lost his natural-born freaking mind. Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of them have gone complete nuts. Hodge twins, all of them. It's this ugly 1930-ish talk that is not coming from liberals. It's coming from the right. And, I saw a book yesterday at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. There was a group, they had two kinds of books. One was anti-Semitism on the left. They had a little pamphlet that they gave you to read about it. But they had another pamphlet, anti-Semitism on the right. Leslie, both parties are guilty of this. And
I know.
We've not seen that. And I'll let you wrap us up, final word, but am I right on that? That we have got to, if the GOP leadership don't renounce this publicly, and I don't know if they're scared to, or JD's actually a friend to these people, I don't care. But JD, I've got news for you, brother. I'm no friend. You're a friend to them. You're no friend of mine. That's just not that I matter a lot, but I'm just telling you, I'm not voting for somebody that's embracing anti-Semitism. Just not going to do it, bro.
No.
Not going to do it, sis.
No. Well, I think he's going to have to take a stand. I think he hasn't taken a hard enough stance like Trump. I mean, you have no there's not even a remote question how Trump feels about things. I really wish JD would take on that approach too. I don't know if he doesn't have the wealth of life like Trump has that helps Trump get through that. But yeah, I mean, he does need to denounce that. I know JD's been friends with Tucker Carlson for a long time. That kind of concerns me. I've totally just cut Carlson away. I am never going to watch that man again. I'm never going to listen to a thing he says. Talk about somebody that went off the deep end. Well, Candace too, but she was not of the same importance that Tucker is, and that's I think that's devastating to Christians and certainly to Jews. I know they're a small population, but I can't understand it for the life of me, and I don't want to understand it. It seems very evil to me.
Yeah, well, it is what it is, and I think that they're going to have to make a choice which side they're going to be on with this argument, and I don't consider it an argument, but it's just the way the viewpoint is. But it's getting late. I'm going to let you go. I'll probably get you back on next week because I'm sure the world will be just as nutty next week as it's been this week. But it's good talking to you, friend. I'll see you soon.
You too. you.
And we'll get with you soon. Thank you, Leslie. Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Leslie Millwee, everybody, and Magdalene Rose. Two great guests tonight on this Thursday night. Put some fire in that house. Good to see everybody out there tonight. Now, we are going to be here tomorrow night. That's why we're not going to do a lot of videos tonight. We're going to talk to you and get your thoughts. Jenny Castellanova, good comment, 2020. She says a lot of people that were fined and prosecuted for taking a stand on 2020 need to be reinstated and reimbursed, and their records need to be erased. I'll agree with that totally. That is what we were sort of talking about, Jenny, as well, and I think you're right, and I'm with you there. Good to see Cleo in the house tonight, our dear friend, and she says he might have been an asset, quote unquote, but not an agent. If you recall Acosta's comments, it seemed he was more CIA than Mossad, and I tend to agree with that. If he was even that, but I don't believe the Mossad had their digs into Jeffrey Epstein. I do not, and that has been one of the most ugliest aspects of anti-Semitism that has been going on in the country. That they claim that Israel killed him to keep him quiet and to keep his Mossad ties quiet and to keep their part in all this pedophilia and this some of the most ungodly, horrendous stuff that's been said about Israel through this by people that are vile and hideous themselves. And I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, but I think Cleo is on to something. I think if there was any, you being an asset and an agent are two different things. I do not believe Jeffrey Epstein was an agent of Mossad, and I do not. And there's a part of me that don't even believe he was an agent of the CIA. I think that Jeffrey Epstein was just an evil man, and he was an evil pedophile, and he did some evil things. And there's a lot of women and girls, and maybe even boys, for all we know, that have been left in the wake of Ghislaine Maxwell and him. And, if the Clintons were involved in it, they need to spend the rest of their natural-born pathetic lives in prison. If Steve Bannon was involved in it, and, Magdalene, to her credit, asked a great question. Why is it that after Steve Bannon got fired from the Trump White House, that he wound up in Jeffrey Epstein's apartment trying to film a 50-day documentary? And I'm no fan of Steve Bannon. I lost a lot of respect for him here in the last few years, and especially this last year. And then you've got, Steve Gates. That's another one that's a big name on that list. But anyway, we'll follow this story. We'll follow it out. It's a good point. Cleo says, by Acosta, I mean the U.S. Attorney for Florida, who negotiated the plea deal with Epstein in 2008. That's correct. Cleo, I'm sorry, I misspoke. You're right. And that's exactly right. Someone said the man had about 6 different passports. He was definitely some kind of asset. Well, we don't know that to be true. Just because you got 6 different passports, I disagree with that. That's not a sign he was an asset or an agent. There's many people that travel to different countries, and Epstein was an evil man. He was an evil man. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that don't prove that he doesn't prove that he was. No more than it proves that he don't. But I just think that there is and folks, I might as well say it tonight. And I said this from the start, when all this Epstein fervor was going on, and there's a lot of folks didn't like it. I think we are trying to uncover something that ultimately these victims that have come forward, digging up all this dirt and trying to figure out what Epstein was and what he wasn't, is not helping these victims. I just think that we are so consumed with that we're taking our eye off the state of our country, which is more important right now. We can't bring a dead man back. Even if we find out, in looking through these files, that there is more and more victims that are out there, or whatever we find out. We can't dig Jeffrey Epstein out of the grave and try him again. He's dead. He's dead. And, you know, I believe that the country needs some resolution. I'm not saying we don't need resolution, but ultimately, folks, even if we got the truth, I will tell you this. I will say this tonight. Even if we get to the truth, there will be people out there that will twist that and turn it into some kind of QAnon conspiracy. And even if it's proven that he killed himself, there will be some that don't believe it. And I just find I just find this whole journey into Epstein a dark path that we just as a nation right now, folks, we got far more important things to deal with. Now, what he was doing to those kids, trafficking, that crime that he was doing, that is where we need to be concentrating our efforts to make sure that stops, and stop what he was doing, stop her. And, you know, that's just my take. You can have your take. But I wouldn't be losing sleep over who he was and what he was. I'll tell you what he was. He was a pedophile. And he was an evil SOB. Unlike we've seen in this century. And an arrogant one. I've seen a documentary or two on him. And just listening to him talk, there was such an arrogance and such a pompous smugness to him as to what he was doing. He had no fear. He didn't fear anything. But he's found out, I'm sure. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. Talk of war with Iran. Is there not a war going on in our country now? Carol, there is. There is a war going on right now. It's a civil war. It's a civil war of ideas. And I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And Cleo, I'm going to read your comment too. She says, an asset doesn't mean much more than they're being used either knowingly or unknowingly. They're not employed as our agents. That's a very well said difference. And he may have been being used unknowingly. And I'm with you on that. I think that this whole thing is got people so swamped and so, I don't know what it is about human nature that we just like to feed on dirt, don't we? We just like to feed on dirt. And our attention span, I mean, it's like, I guarantee you, I've got Epstein in the subject line tonight. We will get 3 times the audience for putting that name in this subject line than I would if I would have put Jesus as Lord and Jesus is coming again. We wouldn't have 100 people even bothering to watch this video. You put Jeffrey Epstein's name, you put some minister's name in and accuse him of something, or put some kind of dirt, put some kind of insinuation, put some kind of crap out there that maybe not even true, but maybe it sticks, maybe it don't. People will flock to it like flies. That's the state of our country. That's what I'm trying to get across to you tonight. We're better than this. We're supposed to be better than this. I pray we're better than this. And it ain't going to bring Jeffrey Epstein back. It ain't going to redo any of this. This has been done. My only concern is that if there are other people that were doing these things with him and trafficking these kids and doing these evil deeds with him, they need to be held to an account. And I'm totally with Leslie on this. We don't know fully, folks, if there ever was a list. You know, they've released these documents in 3 million pages of the Jeffrey Epstein files and whatever. And ultimately, we may never know the truth fully of what went on. But it's a no-win. It's a no-win. And I'll leave that alone for now. And I'm sure to come up again. I'm sure it will come up again. Anything in Facebook tonight? Elaine Willard said, I heard that Epstein was a CIA asset and Zuckerberg was an agent. I don't know. I don't know. Cleo says they have organized press conferences and campaigns to demand transparency and accountability from lawmakers and DOJ. Their identities were redacted in the release of the Epstein files, and there is a lot of redaction in those files. That doesn't help. As I told Leslie tonight, I just think that no matter how ugly it is and how bad it is, it's just best if they just release the stuff, lay it on the table, lay the cards on the table. We're adults here. We can handle it. Country can handle it. I believe that the Democrats, I think some of the reason Trump is acting the way he's acting, and I think it's a fair, I would probably feel the same way. There's an element of this country that wants to see him destroyed. If there was a whiff that he was somehow connected to this island and connected to the Epstein, they would have done this already during the Biden years under Merrick Garland. The only thing the Democrats can hang on to tonight is those redactions. That's what they're screaming, that all of these redactions. You had Ted Lieu, this losing piece of human flesh in Hawaii, basically come out and literally say on the floor, and you can't be prosecuted for what you say on the floor. He was smart. He didn't go out there and say this on the street. He got on this House floor yesterday and literally said, President Trump, we got proof that he raped kids and was on that island trafficking girls. He literally said that on the floor of the House. No proof, mind you. So perhaps the redactions are Trump's way of just saying, you know, if there's any way to offset all this lies and all these lies, maybe we can do that. I don't know if that's going to help or hurt, but I'm just saying that out loud. Maybe that's what his thinking is. I don't know. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what comes of this. I hope it goes away eventually. And Elaine, I'm with you. I hope and pray he found Jesus before he died. That's what I am praying myself. I hope that he found peace or found whatever he was looking for on this live. Anything else? Anything? I want to ask you a question tonight, folks. What about anything you want to talk about? The Guthrie situation. We're going to take about another 5 minutes. We're going to be out of here in a minute. It's 11:30. Our prayers tonight for you folks in Bloomington, Indiana. You got hit by a tornado tonight. There's tornadoes roaming around southern Illinois, Indiana. It's calmed down a little bit tonight, but I hope you all are safe up there. We've got friends up there. Natalie and Chris Corvin in Indianapolis. Natalie said it blew through there earlier tonight. We're praying for you guys that y'all are safe. It's getting that time of the year. Spring is around the corner. Spring is around the corner. And anyway, all righty. If you don't have anything else to say, I'm going to say goodnight here. Elaine says the victims are being protected with all the redactions. The government always redacts everything in their documents, and they do, Elaine. That's a good point. Roger, you say, how did Epstein get his wealth is the question. You remember, Roger, I think that's a fair question, and I can't answer that question. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows that. I'm sure there are big name people that helped him. But that's why we need the truth. We need to get to the truth, the real truth, not just the media's truth and not just the X truth and not just the QAnon truth and not just all this stuff that's out there. I think that, Leslie said something a while ago, and it was really true. I think we're all just so frustrated, and I'll close with this tonight. I think we're all just frustrated that we can't get a straight answer from anybody. We can't get a straight answer from our government. We're tired of being led around by a noose and led around by the DOJ, led around by these investigations. Even the Guthrie situation is frustrating us because there's just so many holes in everything. We it just don't feel right. It don't make sense. What we see, we don't know who is behind what. We don't know how bad the local sheriff bobbled this case. We don't know if the FBI is dragging their feet. We don't know what's going on. And we just feel dirty. We just feel dirty. We just feel dirty in this country. And we feel dirty on the right. And I think part of the reason is the fact that if these shoes were reversed, and, you know, the ladies on The View today, it's amazing how they were backpedaling. Even Behar was saying, well, we went to some parties with him, but that's not fair that people are claiming we're on his client list. We wasn't clients. We just went to a few parties. Well, welcome to our world, Joey. You and The View have accused Trump of being the devil and being in bed with Epstein, and he didn't even let Epstein in his hotel. So you're getting a little taste of how it feels to be lied about. And I have no sympathy for you. Our dear friend Juanita Broderick, and you heard Leslie tonight, we found out this week her name was on that list. They put her name on the list because they didn't like her and they wanted to discredit her from, it was right after her book came out about Bill Clinton in 2018. And Epstein and his people made sure that that name got on that list, and they did it in hopes that it would discredit Juanita's story about Bill Clinton that happened to her back in the 1970s. So there is so much of this, and I think that we just all want a break. I just think we all want to breathe a breath of fresh air. And I can tell you from a Christian tonight, folks, you know, we have, I'll say this, we've got one of the most precious groups of people in the morning that we study the Bible with every day. We have a great time studying the Bible. We don't talk about the news. We don't talk about what's going on in D.C. We don't talk about what's going on in the world even, in the sense of news. But we talk about the Bible. We talk about the future of planet Earth, God's plan for men, God's plan for Israel, and God's plan for the church. Such a sweet spirit in that chat. Such a sweet feeling, presence of God in there every morning. And I think that it's refreshing that we can just read God's word, enjoy each other, talk about the Lord, talk about Christ, talk about what he's done for us without this tawdry, dirty stuff touching our soul. I've always wondered what the Lord meant when he talked about Lot, and he said that Lot vexed his soul every day with the voice of the unrighteous. In other words, he vexed his soul with the sin of the ungodly when he was in Sodom. And all this dirt does, folks, all this stuff does is vex our souls when we partake of it. We have to report on it because it is the news. But I'm just praying to God that at some point we just move on from this. I think we've got more serious questions and more problems in our nation. And Carol, your point, these ICE incidents and this violence and these riots and these kids being let out of school to go riot with the rioters and become lawless, and the fraud in Minnesota and the corruption from top to bottom in all of our institutions tonight. That's important. That's more important than anything as it relates to a dead pedophile. But I think we just need to take a deep breath, and our breath of fresh air is not going to come from this world system. It's going to come from Christ. And I think we need to just take a big breath tonight and put our focus on him and renew our focus on him and keep our focus there, period. And I think it's going to do us all a lot better. Now, tomorrow night, Friday night, we'll have a show. We're not sure what we're going to do. We'll play a few videos. We may even have a faith-related show, talk about some things going on in the church. We'll have a potpourri stuff. Take your questions and all. And we've been grateful for you to be with us tonight. And may the Lord bless you. May the Lord bless you tonight. I really hope you had a good time. If you enjoyed the show tonight, say amen. Good to see Jason Rankin. Good to see you guys are safe in Dayton. It was coming at you. Maybe things have died down there. And I appreciate that. You let me know that, Jason. I was thinking about y'all. And Prusky, Susan says, it's what's frustrating, too many different amounts of information. That is very confusing. And it is, Susan. And I think that's how we feel. We just want the truth. And we just want the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God. And I don't know if we're ever going to get that. The only one we're going to get that from is above, which we're talking about on our morning Bible studies, which I encourage you to be with us tomorrow, 10 o'clock. We've changed the name of that network. You can find us now easier because we have 2 networks that look the same. But look for the Spirit Word Fire Network. We've got the title change. We've even got a new banner. So subscribe and follow us on Facebook. If you've not followed us tonight, we'd appreciate a follow back. It was good to see Don Barker in the house tonight. Don, hadn't seen you in a while, but hope you're doing well. And may the Lord bless you all. And our prayers for Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana tonight, even in Tennessee. A few thunderstorms coming in later. But God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless this great nation of America. And we thank you for being with us tonight. Put some fire in that house if you enjoyed the show. And we're grateful for you being here with us tonight. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed. And I'll see you back here in the morning and then tomorrow night on the McFiles Network and Podcast. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed.